Okay, today we are almost at Erev Kippur, so we're going to talk a little bit about the tefillot of Kippur and the problems that we have in focusing and concentrating, having kavanah throughout the tefillah. So I want to start with a halacha in a different part of Shulchan Aruch, that Or Haim, dealing with the Ilchot Tefillah. And this is the tool. Rabbi Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher says the following: ויכול להתפלל בכל לשון שירצה. You can pray in any language you wish. Any language. ופרש הרב אלפס, דווקא בציבור, אבל ביחיד, לא יתפלל אלא בלשון הקודש. But there was a reservation on that, qualification by Rabbi Yitzhak Alfasi, that this allowance to pray in any language is only when you pray with the community. But when you pray individually, you have to pray in Hebrew. ויש מפרשים, דהד אמרינן יחיד לא יתפלל אלא בלשון הקודש, דווקא כששואל צרכיו. אבל כשמתפלל תפילה של ציבור, אפילו יחיד יכול לומרה בכל לשון. But some explain that when the original halakha stated that an individual should not say tefillah in any other language other than Hebrew, it is only when he composes his own prayer. But when he does the tefillah that is regularly said by the tzibur, like we have today printed in the Sidurim, he could say it in any language. But
do they differentiate also between Hebrew and Lashon HaKodesh?
No, Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh. That's an invention.
Hebrew, but modern Hebrew, there are a lot of words.
No. They're calling modern Hebrew, making the distinction between Hebrew and Lashon HaKodesh today is a pure Ashkenazi Orthodox invention.
I know, but I'm wondering if they make that distinction.
No,
they don't.
I don't think so. Lashon HaKodesh, Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh, and it keeps evolving. The Hebrew of today is as Kodesh as was the Hebrew of the Bible. It's the same thing. So that you have, of course, there are certain words that you wouldn't use in tefillah, right? You're not going to turn to Hashem and say dachilak, right?
Well, actually, I do.
But if you say, but on the other hand, if you watch the movie Ushpizin, that was a beautiful part where the lady sort of talks to someone. You think she's talking to a friend, but she's talking to God, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and she says at the strong point, she says, "Ani gzura alecha." This is a very, very Israeli phrase, right?
It's actually Moroccan.
Could be, but I'm cut for you, or something like that. It's hard to translate, but it's very, very vernacular. But when you speak, and this is something that Hasidut reintroduced, you have to be able to speak directly to God. And the importance of the language is it's beyond understanding, beyond just saying, but knowing what the tefillah means. And here also, like we saw how Rabbi Yosef Karo finalized it, he says, "Yechol yitpalel bechol lashon sheyirtzeh." You could pray in any language you wish. And he says, "Tefillah kivu'al hatzibur, afilu yachid yechol lomra bechol lashon." So, whether at home or in the synagogue, he says, even for the whole community, tefillah should be recited in a language that people understand. And that means not, let's say it first in Hebrew and then in English. No, say it only in English or only in Arabic or in French or any language you understand, because we don't want to burden the community. This is what happened with Kriyat Torah. At Kriyat Torah, at a certain point, the rabbis realized, and that's we're going way back in the 1st, 2nd century, that a lot of people did not understand Hebrew. So they said, let's translate the Torah to the vernacular, which was Aramaic. However, some people felt that if you read one verse in Hebrew, one verse in Aramaic, you're giving an equal status to Hebrew and Aramaic. So they said, how do we make the distinction? They said, let's repeat the Hebrew verse twice and then read the Aramaic once. The problem was that what started as an attempt to make the tefillah more accessible to people ended up making it triple as long. So eventually they dropped that. But some people kept the minhag of doing it at home, what is called Shnai Mikra V'Hat Targum. So ideally, you should translate the tefillah into another language, or read portions of tefillah in the language you understand. Obviously, there are portions like the Shema and others that should have, universally everybody should understand and read. But when I'm saying that it's the language is important, it goes beyond the meaning. When, for example, someone reads Avinu Malkenu, right? Our Father, our King. There is a difference between reading it in Hebrew and knowing what it means, and between using the word Father in your native language. In any language what is your first language? Whether around this table we have Turkish, Farsi, German, Arabic, Maghrabi Arabic, right? French. So we have all these Russian, Hungarian. We have, mashallah, we have
there's English.
And English too, right? English. Right. Southern English. So it's a multicultural group. So the word father or dad or pa, or whatever it is, in each language, it doesn't mean the same, because you associate the figure and everything that has to do with the father, not with the meaning, but with the word. So there is a translation and there is association. So it's very important to pray in the language you understand. What we tried to do last year, I tried to translate parts of the tefillah. It really helped a lot, and I think that's the recommended thing to do. If we look at what the Tur says when he speaks, Rabbi Yaakov ben Rabbeinu Asher, when he speaks about the order of tefillah, you'll see that this is a problem that existed even at the time when you think everybody understood everything. He says, Shaharit mashkimin lebet hakneset. This is in Siman Taf Resh Kaf, chapter 620 of Or HaChaim. It says, Shaharit mashkimin lebet hakneset, umesaderin habrachot, v'omrim psukei dezimra כמו בשבת. Shaharit, you come to the Bet Knesset and you say Birkot HaShahar and the Psalms, psukei zimra, as you say on Shabbat. ובספרד נוהגים להרבות במזמורים מעניינו של יום. The Sephardic custom is to add more psalms that are related to the holiday, and we have them today printed in the Sidurim, I think between 10 and 12 additional mizmorim, that for some people who usually read the Psukei Dezimra every Shabbat, it's sort of an obstacle course because they're not used to the Hebrew, it's not the same language. But he says, וטוב שלא להאריך בהם כל כך, כדי לקרוא קריאת שמע בעונתה. But it's better not to say so many additional mizmorim, so you could read קריאת שמע on time. ואם יש מנהג ביוצר אור ובאהבה רבה ובאמת ויציב לומר תוספת, הרשות בידו, וכן נוהגים באשכנז. In Germany, and later on among all Ashkenazi Jews, the custom was to add poems during Yotzer. They were called Kovets or Yotzrot. So before you say Yotzer Or, you would say something is called Reshut LeYotzer, an introduction to Yotzer. Before you got to Ahava Rabbah, the second Bechav Shema, another poem. Before Ahmed V'Yatziv, another poem. And it was, at a certain point, originally it was written by the cantors, who were also poets, and they wanted to show their prowess in language and music as well, but it became somewhat burdensome, because the Hebrew, and that goes back to your question about the Hebrew language, biblical Hebrew is very clear. There's a certain flow and beauty. The poetic Hebrew of later generations, depends on where you go. Especially the poems used by the Ashkenazi Jews are very hard to understand. Whether they were written in Eretz Israel in the 7th century and on, or in France and Germany. And if they could only be understood by some experts or by reading the commentary, it's not really worth it. We're missing the point. So the Tur says, יותר נכון מנהג תוליתולה שאין מוסיפים בהם. תוליתולה is Toledo. That was how the Jews called Toledo. Remember the Rabbeinu Yaakov with his father the Rosh came from Germany and eventually settled down in Toledo. And he says, I like the minhag of the Sfaradim that they don't do all these poems during the Bechot of Kriyat Shema. ומתפללים בציבור 7 ברכות, ואחר כך מחזיר השליח ציבור תפילה, and then they say the עמידה with 7 ברכות, and חזרה, ויורד השליח ציבור, ואומר במגן ובמחיה ובמלך הקדוש דברי ריצוי וסליחה. And then when the shliach tzibur says the hazara, he adds supplications and prayers to the hazara. For each bracha, for מגן אבות, מחיי המתים, המלך הקדוש. It says, ולא דבר קצוב הוא ולא חובה. It's not mandatory, it's not legislated anywhere, אלא שבח והודאה והזכרת זכות אבות. It has to be part of the praise and mentioning the merit over the fathers. ומה שירצו להרבות או למעט הרשות בידם. So it's up to the community if they want to add more or to take away from it. And that is important to mention, that when you look at each community with the siddur that you use, if you try to take away something or add, there will be consequences, right? We always did that. So you have to know that when we say we always did that, we refer to the recent past or the memorable past, or sometimes to the time of the printing press. Because before that, there were many different minhagim. I, for example, grew up with a minhag Sfarad, Yerushalmi, Bavli, that had 4 or 5 pages of introductions to Kedusha. Then I came to Brooklyn, I saw the Syrian Siddur that clipped most of it and left 1 page appropriately with the patience of the people. But the original Syrian Siddur that we have from what is called Inconabula before the invention of the printing press the original one has about 100 poems that you read on Kippur. But it's different. They read the poems, they used to read it before Shaharit. Get up like 3, 4 a.m., read all the poems that be in the spirit, and then Shaharit would be very short. Right. They do Shaharit, Musaf, Kriyat Torah, no piyutim, no slihot even, and go home. Could be that it was because of the weather. I don't know, because my father, who grew up in Iraq, tells me that in sometimes in Baghdad, during Yom Kippur, the temperature hovered at around 45 degrees Celsius, which is what?
120, 115.
Yeah, 105, very, very hot, or even more. It's like Las Vegas or Phoenix in the last summer.
No AC.
Yeah, terrible. No AC. So what do? He said we have 3 minyanim in the what's called Slat al-Kibiri, the great synagogue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had 3 minyanim, one at 3 a.m., the other at 5, and the third one at 7. They had room for 2, so upper and lower floor. And it took 4 hours for each minyan. So 3 to 7, 5 to 9, 7 to 11.
This is on Kippur.
On Kippur morning.
How can they pray 3 a.m. before nets?
So that's what they had to do. There's no... they will get to the Shaharit, Amidah,
at nets.
At before nets. Break of dawn, Alat Shahar. He said you would finish the tefillah, you go home, you go down to the basement, and you sleep until Minha, because there's no way you could survive with the heat. So it could be that was when the original Siddur, when they had that, a lot of his morim early in the morning waiting for Amidah, but the moment the time is available for Amidah, like Alot HaShachar or Nitz, they will do the Amidah, very few piyutim sihot and go home.
But that's not afflicting yourself. They slept through most
of
the
in that heat it was,
Give them a break, 120.
Yeah. So that is one. The other, in the Siddurim of today, for example, there's one concept that you have to say in all of the Tefillot of Kippur 26 times Vayavor. It's a new concept introduced past like the 16th, 7th century from the writings of the Kabbalists. It wasn't like that before. Before that they had counting the Viduyim, you have to confess 10 times. We'll see that. But also the Selihot, especially in the Sephardic Siddur, the Selihot of the Arvit, Shaharit, Musaf, Minha, Ne'ilah, except for Ne'ilah actually. Arvit, Shaharit, Musaf, Ne'ilah are almost identical. Very repetitive. When you do it within a period of less than 24 hours, it seems a little too much. So the Hazan, the rabbi, are allowed to look and say, okay, we're going to skip this part, in order to make it meaningful for the tzibur. And he says here also, "Lefanenu en omrim ela davar mu'at b'shalosh rishonot." We, our minhag is not to say too much of additional poems in the first 3 brachot. It means our minhag, the Ashkenazi minhag. Aval slichot v'rachamim chovat hayomim. But to add supplications is mandatory, but it's not mandatory to go on forever. And then he writes what the order of the tefillah. וכתב בעל העיטור, שחרית מתוודה 3 פעמים וכן במוסף ומנחה, אבל בנעילה פעם אחת ואין 10 וידויים כנגד 10 פעמים, שמזכיר כהן גדול את השם ביום הכיפורים, ובלילה אינו מתוודה. So, one of the previous authors before the tool, Baal Aitul, wrote that on Shaharit you have to say vidui 3 times, and on Musaf and Minha 3 times each, and in Ne'ilah once. The problem with that, and why would they come to this number 10? Because they said that the Kohen Gadol would mention God's name 10 times on Kippur. When we say he mentions God's name, he would mention what is called the ineffable name, Hashem HaMeforash, the one we are not allowed to pronounce, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So only on Yom Kippur you're allowed to mention it. But to draw an analogy from this to Vidu is a problem, because mentioning the name, one word that is done with great reverence, is not the same as saying Vidui 3 times. Can you imagine confessing for one's sins 3 times in a row in one prayer, and then do it again in the next prayer, and in the next prayer 9 times, and sealing with Ne'ilah 10 times during one day? When did you have time to commit other sins? If the confession, if the vidui in the morning was sincere and enough, right? So that's why different communities have different versions of the viduim in their siddur, and I always say that we should look at the vidui as a checklist. You know, just like when you go to some supermarkets have a shopping list, mark what you need. You look at the vidui. If you did it, say it. If you didn't do it, don't say it. Or if there's something
for the entire
that's the apologetic explanation. Like someone must have done that. But with time, what happened with time is
it was probably Rami too.
No, but I know from experience when you talk to people, someone says, that's why it says in the plural, right? So to say gazalnu, right? So I'm not a robber, I'm not a thief, but someone in this community must be a thief. So I pray for him. Yeah. So even though originally it started, with a good intention to include others, it ended up with this. Ashamnu, not me, him. Bagadnu, not me, you. Gazalnu, not me, the people over there. Dibarnu dofi lashon hara, definitely not me. So we never
doing that right now.
Right. So I think it's very good to sit before Kippur and make a list, make your own list, even write it down and read it on Kippur, and think of that, and think of things that are specific to you that you want to reflect on, do teshuvah for. And this is better than the vidui, because the vidui here is just a reminder. One time when you say Hashem Baganu, it carries a certain weight, but it has to be balanced. It says, יש מקומות שנהגו שאינו מתוודה אלא לכל תפילה פעם אחת, והציבור פעם אחת, הרי 5, they have different מנהגים. It says, ומה טוב ומה נעים מנהג טוליטולה, again he loves the מנהג of Toledo, it's beautiful, שכמסיים שליח ציבור חזרת כל התפילה, אחר כך מתחיל הפיוטים והסליחות. ממנהג אשכנז שאומרים כל הפיוטים והסליחות בתוך התפילה. So the minhag of the Ashkenazim was to say the slichot in the Amidah, and the minhag of the Sfaradim is to say it after the Amidah, which is what we follow. And he says, וטוב לקצר בפיוטים ובסליחות שחרית, כדי למהר בעניין שהתפללו מוסף קודם 7 שעות, it's better to say less slichot in the morning in order to be able to do musaf on time. And then he says, some say that you have to say 13 times vayavor, or 7. There are different ways to count how many slichot you have to say. Bottom line is that, like Rambam says, tov me'at bechavana, meharabot shelo bechavana. It's better to say few prayers with full intention and with impact than to recite pages upon pages with no impact whatsoever. So what the tzibur does is one thing. What we do on our own with the sidurim, we could listen to the vidui and read either from the Tanakh or from the Sidur or our own writing, something that inspires us and really brings us to this atmosphere of Kippur to make the best out of it. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen.